I got in a stranger's car in the middle of the night. It was perhaps the safest decision I've ever made. I was walking alongside the road at night from a party, ditched my friend for a girl, when the car pulled up beside me. "Get in now!" I froze, totally taken by surprise, as he shouted again, this time saying, "Get inside or you're dead!" The door swung open and I expected to be faced with a gun, but the man's hand rejoined the other wheel, leaving the open seat to me. I didn't notice anything which could pose to immediate threat. He was buckled in, there was no weapon that I could see, and the road was bordered by trees. I could be well beyond the tree line before he got out of the car. 2 years of track conditioning afforded me a certain proficiency at running. In half a second and my brain ran through these observations and considerations. Something else ran towards me, the sound of its bounding feet, barely audible above the hum of the truck's engine. "Hurry!" Instinctively, turning to the approaching thing, I saw something terrible. Hunched, human in only the most general sense that would normally be bipedal, was hunched over to run on all 4 of its limbs. I couldn't make out the specifics of its appearance through the darkness, but I realized with an instant terror that it was completely silent. In this situation, you'd expect to hear some malicious snarling, or perhaps even raucous panting, considering the speed at which it approached. But the only sound were its feet and hands slapping against the pavement. Just silence predatorial. Deeming the car the lesser of 2 threats, I leapt inside and slammed the door. The driver took off without saying another word, and we sped down the road. Looking into the side view mirror, I actually saw the thing keeping up, managing to stay a few paces behind the car. Glancing at the speed meter, my jaw dropped as we climbed to 70 miles an hour. The thing which haunted us was preternaturally fast, and as we reached 80 miles per hour, it barely latched behind. I soon felt the discomfort in my rear. I feared that I had possibly chosen an equal fatal alternative, and implanted in the seat was some sort of poisonous or anesthetic needle, and I'd soon slip into death or at least unconsciousness. The man's wide-eyed gaze was fixed on the road ahead. He paid no attention to me. I leaned forward and dislodged from the object from the seat, bringing it to my face. I almost sighed in relief, seeing the little plastic army man, the bayonet being the thing that poked me. Remembering the dire circumstances, and seeing the still pursuing creature faintly behind us through the mirror, I asked the driver what it was that chased us. He wiped sweat and sweat-matted hair from his face, and after a moment of shuddering, he finally said, "My son." I wanted to think that I hadn't heard him correctly, but the existence of a toy in the seat attested to his statement. Turning back to the mirror, I saw that even though the creature was undeniably malformed, physically warped to be some subhuman predator, it was still familiarly small in stature, no bigger in size than a child. Letting it all sink in, my mind instinctively reverted to performing the habitual behaviors of being in a car. I anomalously reached to pull the buckle of my seatbelt, but my hand brushed against the shreds. The seatbelt had been savagely torn. He did that when it happened. Sorry. The man's voice was hollow now, no longer urgent, like it had been when he unceremoniously picked me up. He drove down a seemingly endless stretch of road, and I found myself growing increasingly thankful that he had come by. Even without a threat of the creature, the walk home would have been awful. Hoping that I wouldn't have inspired some frenzied moment of despair, I asked the man what exactly happened to his son. We were just driving, coming home from his mother's. I get him Thursday, Saturday. Locked out on that. We had the windows down. The air conditioning in my car is busted right now. And he liked sticking his hand out as we drove. Anyway, about 10 miles back it happened. It just came out of nowhere. 1 second he was sitting there, the little hands waving along with the air current. The next, he was slapping at his neck, crying about something stinging him. I looked over, and God, it was huge, like a fat, prickly worm with wings. I know it sounds crazy, but it looked evil. Not just unsettling like spiders or something like that, but as if its sole purpose was to hurt people. I know this sounds ridiculous, but that's the best way I can describe it. He paused there and reaches down to his side to adjust something. I saw bloodstains on his clothing and the rim of a gash glinting in the light of the moon. It looked terrible, but he didn't do anything else to suggest that it bothered him. As he continued, after it stung him, he managed to rip off and throw it out of the window before I could even ask how he was feeling. He started to transform. I swear, it was like his eyes melted out of their sockets. Everything just drooped. His nose and his mouth sagging until his face was just a lumpy surface. It was horrifying. And to make it worse, he was screaming the whole time. He then started thrashing out, clung at the upholstery and himself with knife-like nails that had grown off the span of a few seconds. He slashed in my direction, cutting me across my side. I lost control of the car and slammed on the brakes. I know this will make me seem like an asshole, like a really shitty dad. But I swear, the thing beside me at the moment was no longer my son. There were other changes too. All of them happened so quickly, and I couldn't look at the thing with a feeling other than revulsion. In a moment of panic, I kicked it away from me as I turned. Thankfully, the passenger door came open. It fell out, immediately sprung open, and would have hoped back into the car if I hadn't driven away the moment it was out. I saw it try to run, but apparently that wasn't efficient enough for it. So I got down on his hands, too. It started coming after me like that. I came across you a few moments later. I listened to his story in silence, my blood growing colder with each sentence. I felt for the man. I really did. I couldn't bring myself to blame him for abandoning that creature, that thing, which was clearly no longer his son. I asked what he was planning on doing, beyond just driving to safety, and he didn't respond. The shock, most likely too great to let him think of an immediate future. We maintained about 85, and even though the road was dark, I didn't dare to ask him to slow down. I couldn't see the creature in the mirror anymore, but I doubted that I'd given up. We eventually came near the intersection from which the road to my house could be taken. I told him this, and we slowed as we approached it, despite him being a stranger. I felt he was harmless, and asked if he would drive me all the way home. He agreed, and as we turned, we passed the first car we'd seen that night. He must have looked strange, face a set of expressions of fright, because the passengers, a family of 3, all looked at us with worry. If only they had known to worry for themselves. The man dropped me off, I thanked him for both the ride and saving my life, and he left without further conversation. Despite not having had to walk much, I was still tired, and went to sleep the moment I fell on my bed. The next morning, I went to a nearby diner for some breakfast, barely thinking about the night before. I knew it hadn't been a nightmare. No dream could ever be so vivid and terrifying, but I didn't want to have it at the forefront of my thoughts. Not so early in the day, I was denied this brief peace of mind. As I waited for my food, I overheard two men talking in the booth ahead. Apparently, one was a trucker, and during his route, he passed by emergency bicycles and a low truck. He said that he saw them preparing to haul away a car, which looked like it had been all slashed up, and 3 bodies were lying at the side of the road, covered with tarp. I didn't speak up, couldn't bring myself to utter a word, but knew the people he spoke about had been the family the stranger and I passed on the way to home. The creature that had once been the stranger's son had got to that poor family